So you can write the data in Excel using Python in different ways based on the requirement. Let's say you need to work on large data set, and then sometimes you need to do the formatting, and sometimes you need to work on, let's say, an older version of Excel. So for all these, there are like different libraries you can use, and then sometimes you can use the same libraries for multiple scenarios. But again, it totally depends on your requirement. So in this video, we'll be going through all those libraries which you can use to write the data in Excel with the help of Python, right? So let's start this. Okay, so the first one is the Pandas library. See, sometimes, so how the Pandas is different from rest of the library is basically when you load the data into a data frame, or let's say, into the Pandas library, you can do all kind of manipulation, and then you can pass different parameters so that you can do data analysis part. And once the data is entered, and once the data is cleaned, or let's say all the manipulation is done, then you can simply dump the data into the Excel sheet. And this is a major operations that you can do in the Excel sheet. So let's try to do the practical part. Okay, let's create a new notebook file. So Jupyter notebook, and let's save this first. Right. Good. Let's select the kernel as well. Now let's try to import pandas. I'm just testing it so that it doesn't give us a kind of surprise once we start working on this. Okay, so okay, let me remove this, and then let's start with markdown. So first we are doing write data in Excel with Pandas library, right? So this is what we're gonna do. So let's import Pandas SPD. Now, like I mentioned, Pandas cannot perform many actions, or let's say operations in the Excel, but it can only dump the data. So this is one of the, I would say it's a positive thing, or let's say it's a good part, as well as there are like cons as well, because you cannot do much with the Excel, all the you cannot use all the Excel features, right? So okay, no worries. So let's do create data, right? Let's create some sample data. Okay, so I'm creating a data frame. Data frame is equal to pd dot data frame, right? Okay, so this is the data that we will be using it, and let's also run this. So this is how the data looks. So we have index, and then we have a column named data, and then we have the 4 rows for this, right? So this is how the data will look like when we export this into the Excel. Now write data in Excel, or I would say it's more like dump data in Excel. Like I mentioned, you can only dump the data into an Excel, and once it is dumped, then you cannot do much with the help of Pandas library, right? So to Excel, and then let's give it a name, example underscore pandas dot xlsx, right? So, and then let's give an index as 0. Now I'll show you index as well. So here we have an index 0, 1, 2 and 3. So if you do index is equal to false, what it will do basically, let me run this, and now it has created example pandas. Let me open this file. Okay, so if you could see, we have the data over here column, and then we have the number of rows. Now, why we wrote the index is equal to false over here, because we do not wanted these index numbers to be entered in the Excel. But if I say that I want the index as well, which normally we don't, and then say run, and then if I open this file, I have the index number as well, but it doesn't look good in the Excel. So that's why normally we skip the index part, right? So yeah. Now the next one is the OpenPyXL, right? So write data in OpenPyXL with Python. Let's try to understand what the OpenPyXL does. See, like I mentioned, Pandas only can dump the data once all the manipulation is done. But there are many features of Excel which you can utilize, but for that you need to select a good library as well. And OpenPyXL is one of the good libraries, or library that you can utilize so that you can use most of the Excel features. So what it does basically, it can play with the cells within the Excel sheet, and then you can write the formulas, create chart, or even insert the images, right? So let's do some of those operations, and then again it can be you can work on multiple versions of Excel as well, like the extension, I would say the xlsx and xlsm files as well, right? So let's try that. From OpenPyXL import workbook. Okay, so we will import the workbook class. Now let's create an object. WB is equal to workbook dot created an object. Now let's run this so that it can be used. Worksheet is equal to workbook dot, what all do we have? Active. So once the workbook is created, then we will use the active worksheet, and for that we gave ws as wb.active, right? And now let's write the data, right? So for that ws dot, what do we have over here? Do we have add? Let's do something like this. Let's say b1, right, is equal to the data scientist, right? So now if I run this, let's run this. Okay, now what you need also to focus that we have not saved the Excel workbook till now. So now we will save this Excel workbook. So let's say wb dot save. Now for that, to save this Excel workbook, we have to give the name. So let's say example underscore OpenPyXL dot xlsx. Right, now if you see over here, it will get created. So we have example dot OpenPyXL, right? So let's open this one. Now we have on the B1 cell, we have the data scientist. So this is how you create a workbook, and then within the workbook you add the Excel sheet, and then within the Excel sheet you can write the data with the help of WB, with the help of the cell name or the range that you want to give, right? Okay, now let's go to the next library, xlsxWriter. Now xlsxWriter is one of the best library after OpenPyXL, because you can use the advanced formatting, charts, creating pivot, and then it basically gives you an extensive control over the workbook, or let's say the worksheet, or overall the Excel part. And then similar thing can be done with the OpenPyXL as well. I mean, OpenPyXL and xlsxWriter is almost the same thing. All right, so you can use any of these libraries. It totally depends on which one you like to work on. But yeah, so let's try this one now. Use xlsx to write data in Excel. So import xlsxWriter. Let's create a workbook and add worksheet. Right. So let's try it over here as well. So let's say wb is equal to dot workbook. Here you have to give it a name. So example underscore xlsxWriter dot xlsx. Right. Previously we were first creating a workbook and then was saving and then was giving a name while saving it, but here you can first create a Excel workbook here itself. Right. So xlsxWriter is not defined. I did not run, I think. Okay, I did not run at that time. Now let's add worksheet. Right. So wb dot ws is equal to wb dot add worksheet. Right. So this is an object that we are creating. Let's run this, and then so again this will be similar to what we did in the OpenPyXL. Right. So ws dot write. Where do we want to write? So it's basically 0 index, the cell row is 0 indexed. Okay, so I'll say A1, and then I want to write the data scientist. Right. Okay, good. So we wrote the data scientist in A1, and then wb dot close. And it's important to close, because if you don't close the workbook, there is a high possibility that the instance will still exist, and then there is a possibility that the overall Excel might get hang. Right. So make sure that you close the workbook after working on. So now we have created example.xlsxWriter. So let me just open it. So we have the data scientist which we wrote on A1. So let me just show you that as well. So we wrote it on A1, right? Now after xlsxWriter, one of the other library that you can use to write the data is xlwt, which is basically xlrd. Similar to that, we have xlrd, which basically used to read the Excel. But the major difference from the other libraries are they can basically read the older versions of Excel, or let's say the legacy version of Excel files, let's say before the access before 2003. Right. So that's how it is, or that's why this library is being used mostly. Use xlwt to write data in excel.xls files. Right. Okay, and then you can, let me just write this as well. Use xlrd to read data from .xls file. Okay, let's write the code. So let's import xlwrite. Right. Okay, good. Now let's say wb is equal to workbook. So let's create an instance or the object. Now ws is equal to wb dot active sheet or add sheet. I think it should be add sheet. Let's give it a name. The data scientist. So here we are giving a name to the sheet. Okay, so we are not adding the value to the Excel cell, but we are giving it a name to the Excel sheet. Right. And then let me write this add sheet with name as the data scientist. Okay, now that's done, and then after that ws.write, and similar to what we did with xlwriter, we will say 0, 0, comma hello Ranjit. So basically this is a row column, right? So we will run this one, and then let's wb.close. Have we given the name? No, we have not given the name. So let's give close or save. Let's save this. Save it with the name of example underscore xlwrite dot xls. So we are not writing xlsx but xls. So let's first give it a name xlsx and try to save. So it basically saved. See, the Excel cannot open the file because the format is not valid. Okay, now it was not supporting, so let's try to save it with xls file, right? And right, so xlwrite will not, so xlwrite library will not even create the Excel files with the extension of xlsx, but only with xlx extension, right? Okay, good. See, there is one more library which is pyExcel. It's a wrapper library. It basically uses all the libraries that we spoke earlier or we worked on earlier. But I do not like this library. The reason being it's a bit complicated. But you must have seen in my previous video while we were trying to read the data from Excel with the help of this library. We gave it some time, but it was not working. So I will not go through it, and even I have not worked with this library. So if you know, please try to comment and write the code in the comment section. I will be really happy to see that. Right now, see, choosing the right library, like I mentioned earlier, is really important because that will save you a lot of time. And all those libraries that we spoke earlier, from that I think OpenPyxl and xlwriter are really good libraries if you really want to utilize the full features of Excel, objects. These are the good libraries. But if you want to do all the operations in the Python or let's say the Pandas library or the data framework, then do it in the with the help of Pandas. And once it is done, then you can simply dump the data. But see, again, if you are working with Excel, so most probably you would like to format the data, you would probably like to filter the data, sort the data. So for those kind of actions or activities or even operations, I would suggest to go with xlwriter or the OpenPyXL. Thank you so much. It was a great video. And if you have any queries or questions, write me a mail. I will really be happy to help you out. I will try to answer as soon as possible. Till then, take care. Goodbye. If you like this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Take care.